On Story is brought to you in part by the Alice Kleberg Reynolds Foundation. Innovative funding since 1979. On Story, presented by Austin Film Festival. Welcome to a look behind the scenes of the creative process with some of the film industry's most prolific writers, directors, and producers, as well as a showcase of short films from the region's most promising filmmakers.
Oh, when we wrote Animal House, here's a screenwriter story. We wrote Animal House. We were invited to the premiere. A limo took me and Doug Kenny and Chris Miller to the premiere, and one of the female stars of the movie, one of the blonde naked girls, I can't remember her name. And the limos are pulling up it's in New York, it's in Times Square, there's the lights and the crowd and the paparazzi, and I'm so excited. It's our first Hollywood movie. The paparazzi rush up to our limo, they look in the window and say, "It's nobody." One of the nicest reviews I ever read about Ghostbusters, which I didn't direct or edit, was a critic said it was like a well-told joke. And the hallmark of a well-told joke, of course, is the timing. How much do you elaborate a detail in the setup, and how long do you wait before the punchline, and how concise is the punchline? And as writers, I try and write a joke so that there's only one way to do it. And I even try to write the scene descriptions so you have to take as much time to read it as I want you to wait for the line, And it's the only way as a screenwriter you have to manipulate timing. Otherwise, people can really mess up these jokes.
It is a dark comedy because it's a satire. It's a social satire, and it's not a big deal as a comedy. I don't think that the film is chock full of laughs. But it's got a skeptical eye on the values in the film about, almost everybody in it. Well, any draft of To Die For has her dead in the beginning of the movie. There's a long shot which was written and was shot of the camera going over a long, long period of ice. It comes up later in the film and ends up on her body under the ice. The head of the studio said after the script was turned in, well, as you know, you can't start a film with the main character and it being dead. Producer of the movie stepped on my foot to keep me from saying Sunset Boulevard. Let me see if I can boil this down for people who think they're going to be serious about writing. And I will try to paraphrase, well, I can only paraphrase something I think Bob Town said, which is, the audience will forgive you any amount of transgressions for the first hour. But in the last 15 or 20 minutes, you better not screw up. And he's right. You can't wreck a film in the first 10 minutes. You can bore people and you can irritate people, but you can't wreck it. And they'll go along with you for a while, but damn it, at the end, you better be there for them. So it's important to really think about the end, to think about those last 15 pages and what they mean to the rest of the script and what they mean to a director and actors, and ultimately what they'll mean to the audience, because it's probably the most important area of the film you'll ever think about.
One of the reasons why the ending of The 40-Year-Old Virgin works is because Gary Shandling was very specific and would just call me every day saying, you have to find a way to end this movie where when this guy has sex, it's very clear that he's in love and his sex is better than anybody else's sex in the movie because no one's in love like he is. And I was like, I can't show him have sex. I can't, and it really put a lot of pressure on me. I was very nervous about that I couldn't solve this problem. And he would literally leave messages on my machine. Didn't you think of it yet? You gotta do it. And then Steve just one day just said, I think maybe I just sing a song, and then it was just, it was as simple as that.
When the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius.
The movie Vacation, the whole last sequence of the film was awful. The first Vacation film with Chevy, and it had the ending that John Hughes had written for the short story that it was based on. Chevy goes, the park is closed. If you've seen the film, the whole thing has been a quest to go to Wally World. He gets there, Wally World is closed. He buys a pellet gun at a sporting goods store. In the original ending we shot, he goes to Pasadena, to San Marino, to the home of Roy Wally, takes Roy Wally captive, and is having an executive meeting. He makes the executives of the Wally company perform for him. And again, for 80 minutes, the audience is rollicking. From the moment Chevy kidnaps Roy Wally, they're like staring at the screen for the next 15 minutes. And there was no way to get him back. And it was so obvious we needed to rethink the ending. And I just said, well, it seems like the reality is they've been waiting for an hour and 20 minutes to get to Wally World, and we're not letting them get there, you know. Let's let them get there. Let them hijack the park, you know, which seems like everybody's fantasy is, I want to ride the roller coaster when I want to ride it with no crowd, you know, so.
What you shooting? It's a BB gun. I told you it was a BB gun. Well, it hurt, you know. What it hurt? What do you want? What you shooting? You tried to run away. Well, I'm going anywhere. Well, I thought you were. It's great, Dad.
Once you see it performed, it becomes a whole different animal. Right. And I think, you know, if you guys are writing comedy, I think the more successful people who do this realize that, you know, starting off in SNL, we realize quickly, you know, you're writing for actors, and actors, you have to shape it for a performer. And when a performer takes over, it becomes a totally different thing. And when you're lucky, it becomes even better. So, you know, you've got to always, once you get actors in it, and if you're still on it, which is rare, you've got to take their input and put it together, because you know, the page doesn't. Then it doesn't matter what's written; it's just the effect that you want. This business would be much healthier if everybody did everybody's job at least for one day. Yeah, that would be fun. And I remember when they were shooting Coming to America, John Landis put us as extras in a scene. And we're standing on line in the bathroom outside in Madison Square Garden, my partner and I. And I go to Daley's the next day, and I'm like, oh, God, that's what I look like. Oh, and God. Very large. Yeah, yeah. And you're large up there, and you see all your insecurities are there, and they're true. And I kept on going, and I kept going, oh, I should cut the scene out, I should cut that. And I'm going, don't worry, no one's going to be looking at you except you. Let's see another. Still in the movie now? Yeah, yeah. Oh. Let's see another take, and another take came on, and I was still like, oh God, how do I look? And that's, you know, and you realize actors go through that.
The great thing about comedy that I will say is that it's the only genre that you can truly hear an audience, because laughter is audible. It is the only genre that you can know whether it's working or not. If you sit in a theater in a drama, I was saying this other day, like, I don't know if you can measure tears or like how sad people are during a drama or whatever. But in a comedy, if people are laughing, the movie's working. And so the audience is literally yelling out every time you did something right. When I first started writing, and why my first scripts didn't sell, were because they were just packed with jokes, and they were hilarious, but by the time you got to page 30, you were exhausted because there's nothing pulling you through the movie. If you were to watch Scott and I write, which I wouldn't recommend, if you were to watch us write, you'd be shocked at how little time we spend on the comedy. It's all just laying out story and structure and trying to find something new. Comedies all basically follow a very predictable rhythm. I think the reason The Hangover had the success it did was because it's a thriller. It's a thriller structure, but we just happen to have 4 drunk idiots doing it, and so it becomes a comedy. But the structure of the Hangover is not funny. The story of The Hangover is not. You could do that whole movie if you put Harrison Ford in the lead, and you could make it a thriller running through the streets of Vegas looking for his son or his kid with cancer or whatever it is. Like, you could do that movie, and I think that's why that movie caught people a little off guard, because comedy often doesn't spend a lot of time on story. The story is very like, there's an outsider in a world and he has to, whatever, Indian becomes chief. It's a very standard narrative arc. Joke. Right. I think The Hangover surprised people because it actually had a bit of, for better or worse, it had real thriller elements to it, and people were actually engaged in the story in a way that they aren't always. Original pitch was more PG-13 because it's selling R back then. Prior to The Hangover, there weren't a lot of R-rated comedies going out. There's like Wedding Crashers, and then there's like a lull of basically 4 years. And so studios weren't really looking for R-rated comedy. So the original pitch had Siegfried and Roy's Tiger, because that was sort of more organic to Vegas. But that's also like
before Cuban Wild.
Yeah, but that was sort of like an easier joke. Yeah, that's right. That's like, didn't the tiger like eat one of the dudes or whatever? Yeah. But Siegfried and Roy felt like kind of an easy target. You know what I mean? It's like taking shots at those guys feels a little easy. And then Mike Tyson is definitely the R-rated version of that joke, because the dude's crazy, and people are definitely scared of him.
By the way, man, where you get that cop car from?
We stole it from these dumb cops.
Nice. Nice, guys. High five, Dad. That's nice.
I just have to say, I have never seen a more beautiful, elegant, just regal creature.
Check it out, Stu. This tiger.
Oh my God, it's awful.
Oh, man. Who does it like that, man?
As someone who has a lot of issues, obviously. I'm a sick man.
You have carte blanche for the first 5 minutes, you can be funny, but there is, I think, again, part of the reason The Hangover is successful is a lot of the stuff that was even in the original script about backstory, all that stuff that studios love. Studios will turn every movie into a drama. If left to their own devices, it will eventually just turn into a drama. They don't pitch jokes. They're not looking out for. They're not protecting comedy. I'm not saying that in a mean way. That's just what they're good at. They're good at story, coming up with backstory, all that stuff that I think most audiences are like bored of. And you take movies like Judd Apatow's movies. I don't know the 40-year-old virgin's what his dad's like. I don't care what his dad's like. I don't care if he has a pet. I wanted him to be funny with the other guys in the store. I want Jane Lynch to say weird shit to him. I want, you know what I mean? I go to comedies because I want just like this much character and a lot of laughter and like something to root for the whole way through.
My name is Bradley Jackson. I'm a local Austin writer-director, and I did The Biggest Weakness, which played Austin Film Festival in 2009. I think the biggest challenge with making a comedy is treating it realistic, because oftentimes you'll see a comedy that's trying too hard to be funny. The characters themselves are trying to be funny, and I think most comedies come from a place where the characters are being very serious. But the situation is really funny, or their seriousness is ridiculous. Kind of the creative reason why I made the movie was because I've always been in job interviews where they ask that question, what is your biggest weakness? And it's always this tricky balancing act you have to walk, because you want to say something honest and real, but at the same time you don't want to make yourself look to be incompetent. And so I thought that was just inherently funny, and I thought it'd be an interesting idea for a really short, quick movie, something that everyone could relate to. Because everyone's been there and everyone's been asked that question. So I was really inspired by the TV show Scrubs when making this movie, and what Scrubs does so well is that they make you laugh for the majority of the episode, but then by the end they kind of put a little bit of seriousness or a little bit of relatability into the episode. And so that's what I really wanted to do with this, was to do something goofy and silly and a little fantasy, but then at the end bring it back home to be realistic, and then kind of cap it off at the end with a joke. So we're hoping for, obviously a lot of laughter during the fantasy sequences, but by the end I really wanted people to kind of relate to the character and relate to his answer. So that was my goal. My name is Bradley Jackson, and I hope you enjoy watching my short film, The Biggest Weakness.
Well, Leonard, can I call you Lenny?
Yeah, of course, Mr. Pearson.
Please call me Ray. Your resume looks fantastic. Great references, excellent personal skills, and I like the fact you're not a Cowboys fan. I'd like to conclude the interview with one last question. I think it shows a different side of people. A side you don't often see in big business. Lenny, what is your biggest weakness?
What?
What's your biggest weakness?
Biggest weakness? Why would they ask that?
Well, are you serious?
I haven't interviewed for a new job since I graduated college. That was 10 years ago.
Trust me, corporate types love this question.
Why?
I don't know. They think it makes you think outside the box or something.
That is dumb. It's a loaded question.
You want this job?
Of course, I need it.
You and everyone else in the world.
I know the job market's competitive right now.
The job market is the most competitive it's ever been, which makes it extra important you answer this question right.
Shoot for ball? Fine. What do I say?
Well, most people try to make their weakness sound like a strength.
So something like, my biggest weakness is that I don't know when to quit. I work too hard, and occasionally I have been accused of caring too much about my job.
Stop. No. Big leagues hear that kind of crap all the time. I work too hard, I care too much. It gets old fast.
Well, what do you suggest?
Well, you have to be confident.
Confident, huh? Listen, Ray, I could give you some formulaic BS about how I work too hard, I care too much, and it's all true, all of it. But I bet you hear that bush league garbage 8 days a week. Am I right? Yeah, of course I am. So what do you say? We cut the crap, we pull down our pants, and we see who's a distant second.
No, no, no.
Okay, so?
So be honest, you know? We're all human, we all have flaws. Don't be afraid to be a little vulnerable.
Well, sir, I got a lot of weaknesses. Let's start from the top, shall we? First, my mother breastfed me until I was 10 years old, so I have an above-average Oedipus complex. This explains why I'm a closed-minded narcissist with a crippling lack of self-confidence and a constant need for approval. Does that make sense? I drink alone twice a week. I'm $12,000 in credit card debt, and I prefer the WNBA to all other sporting events. What? I thought honesty was good.
You really like the WNBA?
Don't judge me. I like layups.
Look, dude, you have to try and walk that fine line between being humble yet confident.
How do I do that?
It's a dance, dude. A beautiful, delicate dance. It's a balancing act. You need to be humble and real, but you can't overwhelm them with personal information or problems that need to be left at home. The content of your answer, your actual biggest weakness, isn't really the issue here. It's the way you present yourself. So really, being able to acknowledge a weakness is actually a strength.
Do I need to repeat the question?
No, sir. My biggest weakness. It's tough. I mean, it's not tough to think of one. I'm a regular guy with regular problems. It's just tough to be real and honest with someone I'm trying to impress. So my biggest weakness is that I'm indecisive. For instance, I knew you were going to ask this question today, and I couldn't decide how I could answer it in a way that would impress you, but then I realized I'm not in control. You are. And if I do get this job, you're eventually going to discover my biggest weakness. But the good thing about a weakness is that it can eventually become a strength. And I know that if I do get this job, I will work tirelessly to try to make this happen.
Good answer. Anything else?
I also like the WNBA.
Really? Me too. I love layups.
Song auditions, take 1.
My character's flawed, it lacks completeness. It's full of holes without uniqueness. I put no thought into the words that I say. It's all part of my biggest weakness.
No, I'm afraid that's a bit too weak. We need a bit stronger, I think.
I'm lucky at love, I have what it takes. And on the job, I make no mistakes. Yes, I am perfect in so many ways. It's a part of my biggest weakness.
Yeah, that's great. Now, next.
Hi, I'm Jon Merriman,
And I'm Kerri Lendo.
and we made Sleep Study.
Being a comic, I knew I wanted to make a comedy, and I don't want to stop at just stand-up. I like all forms of comedy I'm interested in, so it was really nice having Jon as a resource who had been doing film a lot longer than I to help out on.
Yeah, it was a total blast. We knew from the beginning we wanted to make something funny, so that's what we did. Funny thing about this project is we didn't really have a script for it. We had certain beats that we wanted to capture when we were shooting the actual Sleep Study footage, but the reason for that was we were on a deadline. We knew we wanted to make a movie, and Kerri had said we're making this happen no matter what. We had one weekend where we needed to shoot, but our cinematographer wasn't available. So that's sort of where the idea for the whole movie came from. What's something we can do?
We were just like, we have one location, we don't have enough time to do multiple shoots, and something that doesn't need to be lit well or look particularly nice. As for co-directing with Jon, it was really nice acting in it. I didn't want to put through any of my friends having to be blindfolded for all day long. So, but I knew just from directing before that it would be like so much to have to stop, and like the camera was really high up and look at the footage. So it was really nice to have Jon.
I'm Jon Merriman.
I'm Kerri Lendo.
And we hope you enjoy our film, Sleep Study.
Thanks for watching.
Kerri?
Yes.
How you doing?
Fine. I mean, other than the being tired still. I'm going to bed really early. I just feel like I wake up, I still feel exhausted all the time.
Well, I just got your tapes back from the lab. I think we could take a look and maybe see what's going on.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. This is pretty standard. You're doing some tossing and turning here. Yeah, here it looks like you're standing up. And here's where you sort of start sleepwalking.
Is this normal?
I don't like to use that word in my practice. Everybody has sort of different set of circumstances and things they're given to work with, so that word is off limits. Is this a friend of yours?
I've never met her.
Now what's going on here? There's some kind of exchange.
What's in my hands?
If I didn't know better, I'd say cocaine.
I've never done drugs before. Ever. Kind of alarming.
Anything you do during your sleep, anything that happens during this study, falls under patient-doctor confidentiality. So I don't want you to worry about that. We just want to find out what's going on and why you're doing this. Now, it seems like you have a lot of friends over.
I haven't met any of them.
Oh, yeah, he found the camera.
Am I marrying somebody? Is paint samples? I think I'm redecorating.
Well, a lot of sleepwalkers experience this high level of activity.
You know, I woke up and I was starving that day, which I thought was weird. Am I marrying a man and a puppet?
Well, you're showing all the symptoms. It certainly explains why you're not getting enough rest.
I can't believe all that was happening and didn't know it.
Well, there are a couple of strategies I'd like to try with you. It's gonna be with you for the rest of your life, but we can control it. I don't remember any of this.
Don't be alarmed. Many sleepwalkers experience this high level of activity.
This just seems crazy.
Now, that's not a word I like to use in my practice.
Shouldn't be doing this, but...